Hello, good evening, and welcome to
Hello.
this week's edition of Good Neighbor Talks. Hey, Amber.
Hi, Dion. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Uh, it's already Thursday again.
And it's October.
And October is when you took the calendar change. October is LGBT History Month.
October is a
Something
busy month.
that Yes, something that I actually particularly learned just recently about a couple years ago. So, that's one of those things where as though if you don't know and you're not in the know, and then somebody tell you something, and you'd be like, oh, wow, okay. It's so crazy because often it's always in some type of different heritage month or history month or where things are actually really being, highlighted. And if you're not actually really a part of something, you hear it, but it goes in one year and out the other. But this is one of the things where it's, and I've been more conscious to like different, even when it comes to like, uh, also the this month we talk about is Hispanic Heritage Month. I guess they be doubling things up or tripling things up when they be actually highlighting people different things. So, but that's kind of cool though because in many cases you can be celebrating, being part of the community and being part of a different ethnicity too. So, what we want to touch on tonight, which I think is very prevalent because it is LGBT History Month, we want to talk about actually teaching it and discussing it in schools and talk about also the different things of where as though the LGBT friendly states across the United States, which I think is like a faux pas and just oxymoronic that we live in America and it's the United States of America and basically we are like 50 individual like municipalities across the country, and everybody does whatever they want to do that's particular there. So you have to be very conscious of where you live and where you travel and things like that to see how you be actually treated. I'm sorry to say. Um, but what I found, and I had this conversation before on one of my shows, but there's only 7 states in the United States that actually has. I shouldn't say only because I think one of the biggest things is these states have been at the forefront of actually incorporating LGBT history and teachings, especially and also sex education in their
Hmm.
curriculum. And there are California, Colorado, Illinois, Nevada, my home state of New Jersey, Oregon, Washington, and also the District of Columbia. No, Delaware is not on there. It's not in the schools. But Delaware is one of the friendly states. But you made a point when we were discussing this before we came on. And let's talk about Delaware for a second and how that breaks down.
Yeah, it depends on. So if you live in Newcastle County, Kent County, let's break it down a little bit further. Sussex County, Sussex or Eastern Sussex, and then there's the Middle Sussex. So Sussex County is really
Hmm.
interesting. Western Sussex, I would say, is more conservative, much more
Hmm.
conservative. And Eastern Sussex is your coastal towns like, Rehoboth, Lewis, Bethany Beach, all that. And they're more liberal. And then you kind
Hmm.
of have the mix in the middle that it's a little bit of everything depending upon how far in you come. Like Millsboro is more middle, Georgetown's more middle, you know. So two like whole different worlds. You can go from one side of the county to the other, and it's a whole different world. And then, as you travel more north, it's much more progressive. When I first moved to Delaware, they said lower, slower. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, that's just, that's silly. It is a whole different world. And
Yes.
not necessarily always in a bad way. I do feel like things move at a slower pace down here. Take a minute to smell the flowers, but that also means that education wise, sometimes things move a lot slower too. You know, um, I had a child that I was a guardian over, and she went to the Delmar School District. And, Delmar is a really interesting little town. They are Delaware and Maryland. So their elementary school is in Maryland, their middle and high school is in Delaware.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, then Maryland has different days off than Delaware has off. And I said, that makes it really hard for parents and especially for single parents, right? So my high schooler's off Thursday, but my elementary kid's off Friday and I got to work.
Hmm.
So you can't use like an older child to help you that maybe you do use, right? So that makes an interesting thing. Also, they all ride the same bus. They all ride the same bus. And I
Yes.
remember saying to someone that had life, and I said, this is just weird. They should really rethink about this and think about like family structures and how Amber, it's been this way all my life. It's been this way before I was born, and it ain't ever gonna change. And I was like,
So when you say everybody, and
okay,
I don't want to get off the subject, but this is interesting. When you say everybody rides, you talking about K through 12?
yes,
Really?
yes.
I don't. That
So
does not seem
basically,
productive at all.
look, I was so surprised because my neighbor at the time had small children, and I had a high
Right.
schooler, right? They got on the same bus together. I believe they dropped the high school kids off first because that was in Delaware, and then went to the elementary school and dropped them off. They say
These.
it's a little town too big for one state, honey.
Yeah. Okay. I don't. That sounds like a whole nother show. To actually pinpoint the aspects of why would these elementary school kids be with middle and the basically little adults, grown folks, all riding in the same bus. No, just the school.
But you know what? They kids towards the front of the bus, and the older kids got to sit in the back. They didn't have issues. I never heard of any bullying on the bus. I never heard of anything. But also, it's a whole different sense of family and community there, right? Like everybody helps. Everybody helps get each other's kids on the bus. Everybody helps get each other's kids off the bus. Like it's a whole sense of community, even out in like the more rural area. So it was really interesting to see like how that worked and fit. Like I said, I didn't get the kids because I said so the bus will run just for the high school kids today, and they were like,
But that's
but talking
interesting
about
because,
progressiveness,
but you know what?
let's kind of talk.
Right. But
So on a progressive level, they
right,
never had. And then when
right.
you leave and go to Milford, like they did, you would walk through the classrooms and it would say like this is a safe space. So that shows just the difference. And I know Milford High School, I believe, is technically in Kent County, but a lot of their students are also Sussex County.
It's technically Milford is like the last town in Kent County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, technically. But once
It's
you
a whole
break it down into, yeah, just like the borders is kind of it's funny because Smyrna is actually the first town in Kent County.
mm-hmm.
Newcastle County runs from from Claymont all the way down through Middletown until you get into Smyrna. Smyrna is the first portion. Well, actually, once you get past the around where the the prison is in Smyrna. You'll see a sign that says "Welcome to King County." I'm from, I well, not from, but I lived in Smyrna for 15 years, so I know. Um, but you know what? That part of what you talk about the bus and that kind of leads to what the subject that that we're talking about, but which I think is very preventable. That's good with these states and many of these states that actually have enacted education, LGBT education, and so it starts at like the K through 12 level. So it's where as though um, like fans, I want to break it down so you know. In 2011, California was the first state, of course, because California is always, very,
Yeah.
face forward, progressive. That require inclusion in LGBT history and experiences. And then 2019, Colorado mandated that inclusion of LGBT alongside with people with disabilities and indigenous people be in textbooks and in history lessons. Illinois followed the same law that required history and roles of contribution LGBT in the textbooks. And I think that's very important because if we get textbooks, majority a lot of people don't know, majority of the textbooks that are in the schools that we use throughout the country, they come from two states. They come from Texas and they come from Florida. So a lot of the information that yes, so a lot of the information that we get are the well, I'm old now, so I already got this information, but a lot of the information that the children get that school they are printed and made and put together in two states that are not very diverse and progressive, to say the least, and trying to
Mhm,
be nice. Um,
mhm.
Nevada is the most recent state that passed the law in 2021, and it requires history be taught and inclusion be taught starting in kindergarten. So imagine that. Imagine a society. No, we're talking about a state here, but so these things are taught to a 5-year-old, 6-year-old. So they would never ever have the thing of being like, well, what is a gay person? What do they look like? Oh my God, I seen something, and they so it's where as though they experienced this from the time that they're child. So if they won't be, I think that's the way to just like disperse the hate and to actually
Mhm.
make it more
Because hate is
mainstream and easy because you learned it when you were coloring and with your blocks and your letters and things like that. What were you going to say? Well,
hate I can't even talk. Hate is taught.
yeah.
They're not born to hate. Hate is taught.
Mhm.
As much as people don't want to say that it is, it is. You know, talking about like starting that history at such a young age, I had a conversation with someone and they were like, I don't want my kids to see, gay people on TV place. And I said, everything has a place, huh? So I want you to stop and think about this. You don't want to see the cartoon show Two Daddies or Two Mommies, right? So what about women who may adopt a child? About women that do adopt a children. So their child might be biracial, might be brown or black, and they might be white because they didn't care. They just wanted a child that loved them. So children should only see that white representation too. And when you start to break it down about what should or shouldn't be in cartoons and what should or shouldn't be for kids to see because they don't want their kids to question them, well, that child could come home and say to me, well, why is their mommy black? And why are you white? Like, there's so much that if we just taught kids that it's okay that mommies and daddies all look different, that's okay. I would rather see a child have two mommies than one parent that's out there struggling. And I think that's what people miss. So if kids are taught that at a young age, that it's okay to have a different home and a different family life, and we don't look the same because we're all different, it would be normal. They don't blink an eye at it. But when you put this big label structure on it, then kids start to be like, oh, well, little Johnny got two mommies, so what's wrong with him? There's nothing wrong with little Johnny. He's cool. Go play with him. And that's what people tend to miss.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know it comes from the overseers, it comes from the parents, because there are
Yeah.
in any type of case, and even if you're not talking about gay people, or I it just seems like a lot of times everything, and this is America, so everything comes back to either race or class. And when you, it's so crazy too because it's it's so many people now and so many couples and so many parents that they are not the same, come from the same ethnic background.
Right.
Um, and obviously when they get together and they make a child, or even if, and even in the case of uh, parents like yourself, they'll they'll go and get it, because we're biracial, so you know what? Maybe we can find a biracial child. So whereas
Mhm.
though it does blend together, but often that doesn't come into play because sometimes people just want a child. Um,
Right.
I it's so funny because at my job, and this is off on a tangent, but this is to prove the point. I have three Emilys that are clients at my job. My three Emilys are all Asian. They are all two are Korean and one is Chinese, and they all three of them were adopted by a white couple, and as children and grew up and this that and other. But it's like they don't look anything like their parents, but
Right.
and we understand that. But
Hmm.
it's in some cases people that are biologically that have children and their child don't look like they don't look like the two parents. They look like somebody in their line. So it's like, but so when it comes to, that's why the I think education is key because ignorance is not known, and I
Hmm.
think it's very prevalent in this country that we live on stereotypes and he said, she say, instead of actually being educated and textbook educated. And actually, I
Hmm.
think it, but also I think this is key because representation matters. And people constantly, it's a stereo, I mean, it's a it's talking points that people often say representation matters. And the
Right.
only people that actually push back on representation matters are the majority of people that they already been represented.
They have the representation.
They have the representation and they have it so much that they don't understand that you have a privilege
Right.
because you've been represented all your life.
Right. So you
And
don't
people that look
understand
like you have been right. It's so funny because when you talk about television, and again, I mean, when you talk about the cartoons, and then with the two moms or the two dads and things like that, I can sit here and say I'm a 52-year-old man. I remember a time when I was growing up and I was a kid. All I seen majority of the time on television was white centric TV shows because, for one,
Mhm.
you didn't have that many channels, and that was the mainstream thing. If they did have people that looked like me, a lot of times it wasn't great positive role models of it because they had exploitation films, or you had like Good Times. I mean, good shows, Good Times, The Jeffersons, uh, Sanford and Son, and things like that. But it wasn't until the Cosby Show that they actually really put you know black people in a positive manner, doing well, living in Harlem and the brownstone, having a mom lawyer and a dad doctor and things like that. And he was a diddler in real life, so go
Right.
figure that bullshit. But so when and I've had a show to talk about this earlier too. It's about representation and not indoctrination, because I believe representation it is positive for, especially when the explosion after 2020. And I paid attention, and I'm pretty sure Amber, you paid attention too after 2020, and during the pandemic, and after George Floyd. You rarely ever seen a commercial. This is when corporate got it like, okay, we got to. It wasn't no white couples anymore. You start seeing more interracial couples. You start seeing more gay people in commercials. You start seeing more trans people in TV shows that were actually really trans. Because then they start saying, even with
Hmm.
cartoons, let's stop having these white voice actors actually voicing people of color, different ethnic groups, because
Right.
you can go find someone that is actually from that's Pakistani or Indian or black to actually play this act instead of a white actor.
Hmm.
And it didn't miss on me that those things happen. But now it's been a push back from that diversity. And it's just because many of my TV shows that I watched, especially when I became part of this organization, I start noticing trans actors. I start I'm noticing more gay characters being portrayed, and not just, and then also a lot of LGBT based TV shows and things will start coming out and things like that. But I think when you talk about inclusion and you talk about representation, that's how we get better and get educated on the community, because you're actually seeing real people.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because 911 Lone Star was one of the first shows. I couldn't remember if it was that or Station 19.
Yeah, this Lone Star.
Yeah,
I watched it, and it had the trans man.
Brian. Yeah,
Yes,
Brian Smith, Brian Michael
right.
Smith. Yeah. So
Yes,
that was like people didn't make such a fuss about that. But then the other show with the guy named Buck in it, it came out as a
yes.
gay man, and people were like, and it
You know what?
really,
I'm gonna Okay. We're gonna get on that because since you here, I stopped watching that show when that storyline came out, and I'm going to tell you why. I thought personally, and I love that show, and I really need to go back, but I thought there were no signs of that, and they kind of force fed it into the storyline to me. Now, but I got like you said, like and I'm good to walk away from a show anyway and then go back later because I do like enjoy it. But I was just like, where is this coming from? Like I did, and I guess
So I
maybe you could tell me, did
let
they?
me
I know he always had. He was a good. First of all, and gay or not, whatever. He was always a kind-hearted dude. He was always good to his sister and all his friends and everything. But he always had problems with relationships. He always had relationship problems. So I don't know if this was something that they were actually building up to over the seasons, but it was kind of crazy. It was like season 5 or 6 or 7, and then now it was this. It was never any hints to it. Did you? Did you finish watching? Did they do? Did they do the arc? You hear me, Amber? You freeze? Yeah. Oh well. Oh, technical difficulties. There you go. Okay, you froze. You get back it.
I so they are doing work outside our house in this.
Yeah,
I think that's what's messing with it because I never have this connection issue, and I'm like, it's
I
like
know. This
check
the first time.
everything.
Yeah, we never had this problem before. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Please bear with me. Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm wondering if it gets backed up. I'm thinking that's a lot of it. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear
I feel like one of those telecasters. I'm Bri from the hurricane as I'm cutting in and out of the.
you.
Are we back?
Yes, I asked you. We were talking about. Unfortunately, we were talking
Okay.
about the character Buck being portrayed as now being gay on
Right.
911. I was wondering, did they do? I don't know if you heard everything I said, but it was never previously. It was never a hint to this.
Right.
So I was kind of one of those shocked. Show like, why are they doing this? So did they actually go into detail his storyline?
I want you to think about this. I don't know that they did. I don't remember that. But if you looked at all of his relationships, he never had a stable relationship, right?
Yes.
So,
That yes.
how often are we taught that we're to meet someone of the opposite sex? And, I remember when an much older person in my family found out that I dated a girl, they were like, oh, you were not raised that way.
Which means whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
Which
I
means
don't know.
that,
Lesbians are raised to be lesbians, but okay.
right. So, was this to show like what it is really like sometimes in the community? People aren't provided a safe space to come out, and maybe someone comes to them and does hit on them, and then they're like, hey, I kind of really like this person. Like, let me just live my life. Like, does this light bulb go off? Because that's kind of how I felt sometimes. Like, this light bulb just went off. I was like, I can really do what I want to do. I am a grown up. I am a big girl, you know? And so I think that sometimes it does happen like that. Or let's talk about like the lesbian women that were once married and have
Yes,
children.
plenty of them.
Does that mean that they weren't always a lesbian? Right. It means that at some point they probably did what they were taught they had to do and not who they really are. Oh,
Oh,
I have a
I
visitor.
see.
Nope.
He's like, oh no,
He's
I'm
like,
not supposed to be doing that.
not my daddy.
Never mind.
So, um, I think that that's what that storyline showed. I think that storyline showed that just because this is how you've lived doesn't mean you have to live that way if that's not who you really are and who you're really comfortable with. And it did show him kind of even struggling being in public and, people seeing them together and maybe knowing that they were dating. And, I remember that when I first dated black guys, people were like, You don't do that. And I was in high school. So it was like I always had to just be friends with them. I couldn't be anything more because I knew that even though some people in my family accepted it, a lot of other people
Hmm.
didn't accept it. So how would I bring that to not accepting? How would they be treated? How would I be treated? And I think that's kind of what that storyline was trying to show.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I gotta go back, but see,
Yeah,
the
go
thing
back.
with it, I'll go back because it was an awesome show, and I think it's like
Mhm.
that was like season 7. I was just confused. Um,
Right, but is there a season where you know who you are?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that, and I mean, he was just, I mean, he was still a young man. I mean, maybe 30 or early 30s at that. Like, so, like I said, it might have got broken off. He never had a stable relationship
Right. So
with with
were the
anybody.
signs
He
there,
was
and
always trying.
we didn't see that? Were the signs
Yeah.
there? But to us, to most people, it would be, oh, he just a male whore. He popping in and out of women. We wouldn't see it
Yes.
and
Yeah. Yeah. But makes sense, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people that may have that's been in the same situation that ran a parallel life to that character. So, but the positive thing is that that story is being told on television, on
Mm-hmm.
a popular show, so you can actually get. And I think it had the effect that it was supposed to have effect because I think in real life, a lot of people are just like you said, shocked when they find out somebody that they know, um, or comes out or is a situation that they not. So it was all for a positive. I want to go into um, some of the. I know one of the things that I want to talk about is the LGBT friendly states. And these states are friendly based on their policies. Grant, I'm not saying every state is perfect because everybody's not perfect and everything
Right.
like that. But the policies that these states have are LGBT friendly, and they also are inclusive. And a lot of times they're they have some type of even uh, guarantees for affirming care and things like that. But the crazy thing is a lot of them are in the Northeast, and then most of the least friendly are where? Of course, in the South. It's crazy, but I mean, it's stereotype. Um, the number one ranked friendly state to LGBT people is. Do you know this one? Do you know? It shocked me. No, I thought it was that. It's up there. It's number 2. Vermont, one of the smallest states. But think about it. Vermont was like one of the first states to actually, after Massachusetts was the first state that had same sex marriage, but
Mm.
Vermont was the second state, and Vermont ranks one of the most inclusive states with extensive protection for LGBTQ plus in their residents. So a lot of people, because I think people they go up there and they leave each other alone
Mm-hmm.
and they just allow you live and be happy. California is known for its comprehensive laws, including protections for LGBT plus youth, and they score overall high for LGBT equality. Get Massachusetts a pioneer. They were the first state with legalized same-sex marriage and offering broad legal protections, and currently has the first openly gay lesbian as governor. Yeah, a lot of people don't know because they don't pay attention. Yeah, Minnesota um, was one of the first states that banned discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity in employment and housing. New York guarantees um, gender affirming care and also LGBTQ plus refugee protection. The state of Washington includes a lot of comprehensive laws. Colorado has a strong protections for LGBTQ. You can notice that some of these states that I'm mentioning also have legalized education and curriculum. Colorado, New Jersey, California. Maine is consistently ranks high for its progressive laws and supportive of an LGBT environment. Maryland offers a lot of comprehensive and supportive laws to its LGBT plus residents. And when we talk about protections, we're talking about you can't get fired from your job. Those type of discrimination because of your gender, and also, like I talked about before, we talked about before, are have been in these job areas where as though they use the pronouns where they allow you to be, if you're transitioning or you go by a nickname. I have many. When I say many, um, I guess it's many because I mean it's one building, but it's over 20 some odd people that are clients in my building that um, are transitioning or at transition, and they just employees. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, in the way they just
Right.
sit because they. But one of the things that I noticed from day one with working at I worked for J.P. Morgan Chase that it was heavily it was heavily based with LGBT employees and organizations within the structure, and it was celebrated. Whereas though one of the things about diversity is the key thing is you celebrate everybody and you're inclusive to everybody, then it's a better work experience because you're not hiding like you can't be yourself.
Right.
It's a really good thing. Um, Delaware, hey Delaware, Delaware is recognized for its safety and comprehensive supportive laws. And Delaware is, and I'm going to, we already just talked about how lower, slower, and is different. But Delaware is one of the few states in America that same-sex marriage is now in its constitution. So whereas though with that means for people to understand that it is written, it shall be, it's the law of the state for eternity, no matter what any federal laws or anything else it will ever change, which won't. But I don't think it will because that's a whole nother can of worms that we we're going to have a show on that.
Mhm.
We're going to have a show. What happens if same-sex marriage is overturned? Like what the same thing that, and I shouldn't say that because I never thought abortion to be overturned either. I never thought that,
I
but
think if that happens, then they're gonna go for interracial marriages next. I, I feel like that's the push.
that
That's
was on the books. It was on the books years ago too,
yeah.
and that's my whole point. But it's a lot of factors that it's. I don't think it's actually going to happen because it's the money issue. It's a
Hmm.
lot of money involved in it, and I actually
Hmm.
did a breakdown and research and for about a week, like a while ago, about that, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I actually did. If you want to do, if people are watching this, if you can go back, if you go into the IME app and you go look in our blogs and you go in the past, because I do a political blog. once a month, every third week of the month. One of my blogs was talking about the possibility and why same-sex marriage would actually be taken away and what the effects would happen because it can't happen because it would be you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I'm sorry, you can't. It'd be too
Right.
confusing because for
Right.
one, you can't your marriage is acknowledged in this state, but if you move to this state now, your marriage is not acknowledged, and then you don't have these same protections,
Right.
and also you the insurance things about your partner. It's too much shit. It's too much money, and one of the things about living in a capitalist society, money always rules. But
Yes, it does.
and then also he said was friendly about Nevada. Uh, what is the definition of a friendly state? A friendly state is a non that has comprehensive laws, states with non-discrimination law covering employment, housing, and public accommodations, youth protections, policies that combat bullying and ensuring inclusion of sex education and address issues like LGBTQ plus youth homelessness, transgender rights, supported gender affirming protections, and also you have community and corporate support in those states and in those communities. That's a friendly state. Now, literally, it's only about a handful of, DC and then about 15 states. And so you have 35 states out here that don't have these protections. And as many of our
Hmm.
friends and family that live in these communities. The least LGBT friendly state was again with top ranked this year again was Arkansas. For the third straight year,
Really?
Arkansas, the Walmart state. Yeah,
Do you know what's really crazy is that is the state that they host Miss Gay America in.
really. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense because you know why? The most racist state in America to this day is probably Mississippi, and it's the most politically separated. Whereas though it's white and black people don't have any power, but Mississippi is what the most heavily populated state in America that has black people. It
Mhm.
has 35% black people in it. That's why it is the most racist. I always make the joke that I always make the joke to people when they say they from Mississippi or they got family from Mississippi. I said, man, do they got shoes yet? And do they know that slavery's over down there? Because in some it has been politically when you talk about gentrification and you talk about no, not gentrification, I'm sorry. When you talk about the way how they make the ballots and everything, so whereas though I don't believe you want to fight. I should know this. Oh damn, Amber, I lost the word when they talk about when they gerrymander is the most gerrymandered state in the country because you have this when you have this heavy you have 35% black population, but they only have one representative in the House of Representatives from their black. They basically push all the black people into one district, and the ones that separated, they go all around these other white. So they only have one black representative in Mississippi when they are 35% of the population.
Mhm.
That's
It's crazy. That's
I don't want to get
absolutely.
into that. That's a gerrymandering thing that they hold up, but see, these are all things that happens, and it's a cross section because being a part of the community, you still are part. You're a minority, just as so. A lot of times they do the same thing. They put you in a second, so whereas though you don't get your representation,
Yep.
and this all happens. South Carolina, Louisiana, South Dakota, and of course Alabama. These are all states that scored low when it comes to being part of the community, and they don't have protections, and they don't love you. But you have, I mean, keep. But granted, does that mean there's no people there in the community? Of course, but they have more. They have more struggles, and it has to change because I don't. I don't think is we're at the point where as though people are going back in the closet and people don't want to be seen.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Jay and I often as we are not our ancestors. And
Hmm.
he's talking about that. Said, you're right, because even as a
Yes.
white woman, I'm not my ancestors. I'm not going to do what they did. I other other people that look like me, like it or not. We have younger generations that are coming up that are changing the way people think. It's
Hmm.
unfortunately these older generations, that generational trauma, those generational curses, and I think that's what really changes it. But you're right. Nobody's going back in fields. Nobody's going back in closets. Nobody's going back
Right.
anywhere. We want to
Right.
move forward. And I believe that the country wants to move forward. And I believe states want to. 2 years ago, Jay and I attended a conference in NOLA, and it was amazing in New Orleans. And it was for the United States Conference on HIV and AIDS. That was a big thing for that area.
Right.
And
Yes.
you've seen trans people, you've seen lesbian people, you've seen gay people, you've seen non-binary, you've seen heterosexual people. It was a whole melting pot of all different people of all walks of life. And guess what? It was a good thing. And it was a good thing for their community.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it's interesting to see that how, as you said, money moves everything.
Right. Right.
You bring a big conference, you bring a lot of people, and suddenly nobody cares about anything.
That is so. They still hate you, but they'll take your money.
Oh yeah,
I
and
mean,
don't
look,
be
no,
nice
and
to
I'm
you for
not
that
saying you.
day.
I'm just saying in general. That's just where though. That's just in
Right.
general. They'll hate you, and they'll talk about you, this, that, and other. Now, I actually respect the true racists and the true homophobes that just won't let you come and won't take your money. Because I respect you. Don't take my money then. But don't take my money and still treat me like it did treat me like shit. You know what I mean? But
Right.
but it's so crazy because we do have these things like you said, what the gay whatever in Arkansas, whatever,
Oh, the
Miss
Miss
Gay
Gay
America in
America.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Mhm.
You probably have to do your research. They may wind up have done it there because to thumb their noses at the people of Arkansas. But the craziest thing is they still took the
Well,
money.
and,
They take the money.
but don't you think too that even though that's the state, we're looking at a state level, right? But there's pockets. And so maybe
Yes,
that's the
yes,
pocket. And that pocket says, come, we need more. We need support.
right. You know what?
And
You're
that's how
absolutely
things
right
like this
because
happen.
mhm, it's all just like we was discussing before we got on, talk about Fargo and North Dakota being very progressive. It's always pockets in different uh Austin in Texas. Different. It's totally different. I often say Atlanta is not Georgia. Atlanta is a totally different world than the rest of the state of Georgia. So it is those pockets, and a lot of times you got to try to find. I think it's good to find your people, find your safe space, and find where you're accepted. And there are pockets even in those dusty red states. And then also, I don't think we should actually condemn the entirety of a state based on their political policies and things like that. Because often, what I believe a lot of times, it is those lawmakers that may not be actually truly following totally what their constituents want, and they put stuff into play that are something totally different than what a lot of the people are actually want. Because for the longest time, even when we and I mean we don't want to get political on here, but yeah, I could. But when we talk about abortion, once that abortion uh, ruling came down to the Supreme Court, when you do polls, over 74% of people in the country are, so it's not a majority of people that are anti-abortion. These
Right.
are these are lawmakers. And then every time that has come up on the ballot in every state, and I'm talking about Nebraska and in Kansas, and when you talk about women's health care, when it comes to these things, it always gets knocked down.
Hmm.
So that's just so we can't automatically just condemn a state because of their policies, because it could be those lawmakers and not the total. Everybody everybody is not the state that they live in. We can't just do that. But I just like to know. My thing is, with me, I know for a fact I can never live in a red state. Personally, so I don't want that's. I'm just too progressive, and I just couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I, and I, I just need to know that the laws that are on the books are open for everybody.
Hmm.
That's just me, and I mean,
Agreed.
I have that right to be that way because I'm a male, I'm straight, and this, that, and other. But if my gay people ain't welcome here, if everybody's not welcome here, and you got laws in the books that's shitting on them, I don't want to live there. Person, you know.
If everybody can't come to the cookout, we not.
I see that is well said. That's- and that is spoken from a white woman that's been to a lot of cookouts. I'm sure that's the way she said it that way. She done been to some cookouts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't put no damn raisins in the potato salad, right? You don't put no raisins. That's a whole other. Oh, she froze it up. She froze up. I don't even know if she heard that joke. Um, did you back? Amber, we lost. You froze up. If you can hear me now.
Yes.
Oh
And
wow.
no, put no raisins in the potato salad.
I see. She did. Okay.
I did
She
hear
heard the
that.
punchline though. That's good. I did not think. I did not think
Yes.
you did at all.
Mm-mm.
That's for sure.
One day we will sit down and do a
But you know
whole
what?
episode on what we bring to cookouts, okay?
Okay, that's that. Wow, that'd be a whole nother. I need to wait a minute. I'm putting that in my notes. Maybe we need to work out wait for cookout season to do that. But
Yes,
okay,
yes.
that sounds cool. But you know what? Want to wrap it up because I know we on a time limit, and we with that we're having in and out with
Oh,
your
it's horrible. It
your
is
service tonight.
horrible.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's cool. But I know this was a very great discussion, and I'm happy that we had. And if you watching this later on, leave some comments and actually um and let us know. how you feel about the topic that we discussed. And if anybody has anything that they would like us to discuss on future shows, hey, your ideas are welcome. But
Mhm.
also, I want to let you know the little advertisement and a little, little work that we got to do. If you're not already on the IME app, get to it.
Mhm.
We are having our holiday gala coming up. It is now October, and we are 2 months out of our holiday gala. December 13th. We have early bird tickets on there. We have live band. We're having food. We're going to have awards. If we got nominees for the different awards, which Amber is actually nominated for a couple awards. And and you actually want to see us live and you can be in the building. That's where you'll be able to see us there. And it's a great time every time. So get your early bird tickets now. Um, December 13th. But just go to the IME anywhere on the app or website, and you can do that ASAP before they go up. That's for sure, because they're not going to stay this price
Mhm.
for long. Thank you again. It's been wonderful, Amber, and I'll see you next week, and see you too next week.
Yes.
See you later, neighbor.
Bye, everyone.